Hi, welcome back to Math Learning Groups. Now, today we are going to look at the school paper, which is a SA2 non-Hua paper 2020, and we are going to look at question 16, which is not an easy problem, but there is a method that we always use, which is model drawing. So we are going to use that to solve this problem. But there's something about this model drawing that I want to show you, and it's called parts and units model. Now, there are different kinds of model drawing. You have comparison model, parcel model, stacking model, segmented model. So one of the models that we use to solve harder problems is something called parts and units model. So this is how we draw the model and how we have parts and units in the model. So if Alice gives 22 sweets to Doris, Alice will have 4 times as many as Doris. So that tells you that Alice still has more sweets. Alice has more sweets at the beginning because after she has given, she has 4 times as many as Doris. So Alice must have more sweets. So this is like a before and after problem. So if Doris give 18 sweets to Alice, Doris will have 19 of the total sweets Alice and Doris had. There's a fraction here, so we have understood that the numerator points to the first person, which is Doris, and the denominator points to the second group, which is the total sweets that Alice and Doris had. So it means that Doris has one box, 1 unit or whatever, and Alice and Doris had 9 together, 9 boxes. So find the total sweets they had all together. So when you see problems, first thing that comes to your mind is what method can I use to solve? So there are fractions here, right? Fractions, there are 4 times as many. So the clues are there. We can draw a model, and it's a before and after problem. So it's a before and after model. So how do we draw out this problem? All right, and how do we use the parts and units model? When you draw the model, you will not know that you're using parts and units until you start drawing. Then you will realize that, oh, I need to call parts, I need to call units in the drawing, which you will see now. So let's draw the model, the first sentence. So Alice must have more sweets than Doris at first. So I'm going to draw a longer rectangle for Alice, and Doris will have lesser, right? Will have lesser sweets. And after Alice has given 22 sweets to Doris, so I'm going to cut here, and then give Doris 22 sweets. And then what will happen later? Then you will find that Alice will have 4 times or 4 units. So I'm going to put an arrow sign above, right above here. So why do I not put inside? Because if you do not know how to draw the model, then it's better to keep the rectangle inside empty. Keep it clean so that you can put something inside later. But never mind, even if you put it inside, you can always adjust it. Alright, you can always adjust later. So it's up to you to put inside, put outside. But the guideline is, if you are not sure how to draw the model, it's better to put the units outside. So you have the inside of the rectangle empty. And 1 unit will be over here. So Doris has 1 time, which is 1 unit. Okay, that's how you draw the first sentence. Alright, now the word if tells you that hasn't happened yet. So there's a second if. So which means that hasn't happened yet. So Alice would still have the same number at first. Right? So I use a dotted line to help me to draw her rectangle, which is still the same. And Doris, dotted line to draw her rectangle, which is still the same at first, right before she gets 22, right? Still the same. If means it hasn't happened yet. Okay, so if Doris gave 18 to Alice, okay, so you cut here 18, right? 18 if Doris gives 18 to Alice, so Alice will get the 18. Now at this point of time, I do not know that I'm going to use parts and units. I do not know. I only know that I have units in my model at this moment. So where are the parts? You won't know where are the parts until you start drawing, alright, which will come very soon. So in the end, what will happen after Doris gave 18 to Alice? Doris will have 1 time or 1 box or whatever, one parts. So which means that you cannot call 1 unit already, because after giving to Alice, Alice had 1. You have to call 1 part already, which is over here. So why I don't call 1 unit? Because you already have used the units. So now I know that I must use parts and units. Right, parts and units in my model. That's why it's called parts and units model. Alright, so after giving 18 to Alice, Doris now has 1 part left, and the total that Alice and Doris have altogether, total, will be 9 parts. So that tells you that Alice must have how many parts? That tells you that Alice must have 8 parts in the end. right? 8 parts in the end, which is from here all the way to there. Okay, and of course I don't want to cut into 8 boxes because once you cut into 8 boxes, you find that you are restricted in your drawing. And also you cannot cut because there's a 18 given to Alice already. So you can't cut Alice rectangle into 8 parts or into 8 boxes. So what I do is I put down 8 parts on top. And this model is called parts and units model. So you will not know that you're going to draw parts and units at the beginning. It's only when you start drawing, then you will realize that, oh, I need to call parts later, right? So that's how you have parts and units model. So how many suites do they have altogether? So this is a before and after problem. There is a transfer. There's a giving to another person. So which means that the total is still the same. So every time there's a transfer, right, total is always the same and your model is done. So this is how you draw a model, a simple model, which is called parts and units model. And like what I mentioned for many lessons, when you draw a model, if you have a good model, you do not need to look at the question. You just have to look at the model and use it to solve the problem. So this is how you solve the problem, or how you use the model to work out the steps. You look at one person at a time. Look at Doris. Okay, look at Doris for example, and you can cut here. Not Doris. Okay, look at Doris. Okay, so let me just erase that. Okay, look at Doris. Look at the two models. There are two Doris, which is the same person. So what you do is you cut here, which is 1p, or 1 part, and 18. Okay, and then you will see something. You will see that you can write something already, which is 1 unit is equal to 1 part plus 18 plus 22. And that is 1 unit equal to 1 part plus 40. And the purpose of model drawing is to find what is 1 unit. So you have actually found what is 1 unit, even though it looks a bit strange. So your 1 unit is equal to 1 part plus 40. And you are going to use that to continue to work out some more steps. Like, do you see, now you look at Alice now. Right, after you have looked at Doris, now you look at Alice and compare the two rectangles for Alice. So Alice got 4 units over here. So what is 4 unit? So if 1 unit is 1p or 1 part plus 40, then your 4 units will be 1 times 4. You get 4 parts, 40 times 4, 160. Okay, so you can see that there's not much of a thinking. We don't really think very hard. It's about the focusing on the drawing. Once you can draw the model, then you use the model to write out your steps. So your 4 unit is 4 parts plus 160, which I'm going to put over here. See, that's the reason why I keep the inside empty, so that I can put something inside later. Okay, then you come downwards to Alice's rectangle. Alright, go below to her rectangle and you will see something similar. Alright, something similar. Okay, let me just draw a bit nicely. So you can see that there is a 22 here. So that's why when you draw your model, you must draw proportionally. Of course, it doesn't have to be a perfect model, but it has to be proportional, as proportional as you can, not anyhow draw. Alright, otherwise you can't see, otherwise you can't cut it like this. You can't cut like what I'm doing. Alright, and then you can see that over here is 4 part plus 160. Right? So you actually make the model clearer now. And then what do we do next? Then you can see that your 8 parts, which is Alice's rectangle, okay, 8 parts is equal to what? Is equal to 4 parts plus 160 plus 22 and plus 18. Right? So what have I done actually? I have actually created something called parts and units sentence. And then what do I do later? I change all the units into parts. If you notice my model, inside the rectangles, they are all parts. Okay, they are all parts. You don't see any units, they are all parts. Alright, the units are removed, or the units are ignored, because the units have all become parts already. Yeah? So now I'm using the parts to work out the steps. So 8 parts is equal to 4 parts plus 160 plus 22 and plus 18. For those who are still confused and not sure how I get this, I'm talking about the 8 parts here, which is equal to whatever there's below. Okay, whatever there's below, and we can find how much is 1 part. So how many is 1 part? Then you continue. 8 parts is equal to 4 parts plus, add all this together, that will give you 200. So 8 parts is equal to 4 parts plus 200, which means that your 4 parts, alright, how do you get 4 parts? 8 minus 4 parts. 8 parts minus 4 parts give you 4 parts. That will be 200. And your 1 part will be 200 divided by 4. And that is 50. So the purpose of model drawing is to find what is 1 unit or what is 1 part. because once you can do that, then you can find the question mark. So what is their total at first? Or what is their total, which is unchanged? That will be 9 parts. So 9 parts will be 50 times 9. That will be equal 450. And that's how you solve. Alright, so you can see that it's not really a very hard question. I mean, it is a hard question. But the model that we use is something called parts and units model. Right? Parts and units model. But how do we know whether we are using parts and units model when we draw? We actually don't know. Okay, we don't know that we are going to use parts and units model. We just know that we are going to draw a model because it's the model method. So when you draw, and then as you keep drawing, you will realize that, oops, I already have units already. I have already got units already. Right? So if I see some other boxes which are different, then I cannot call them units. I have to call them parts. And that's when I realized that I will need to use something called parts and units model. So when you draw the model, you do not start with thinking, I want to draw parts and units model. You don't really think like that. It's only when you draw and along the way, you will realize that I need to have parts in my model. That's how we use the parts and units model. We wouldn't know until we start drawing, right? And once you have the parts and units model, what do we do next? We have parts and unit sentences, right? You can see that in my statements, I got units and parts in my statements. And then what do? I find one unit, right, or one part. Okay, one unit is equal to how many, or one part is equal to how many, and we use that to work out the answers. And that's how you get the total, which is unchanged. Alright, so we come to the end of this lesson. So hopefully at the end of this lesson, you will understand that there are different kinds of model drawing. Alright, but one of the advanced model drawing is something called parts and units model, which is a bit more advanced and is used to solve harder problems. And you will see this quite often. Alright, quite often in those challenging problems. Alright, so so we come to the end of this lesson, and stay tuned to our next coming lesson, and do remember to subscribe to our MLGs channel, alright, our PSLE Math at MLGs channel to be notified of more lessons. And hopefully with all these lessons, you will have a better understanding, and you will be more confident that math is actually not very hard. It can be very easy to do well if you have all the methods, and you know all the methods, and you're able to apply all these methods. Alright, so see you in the next lesson.